Good evening. The Monday, October 12th, 2020 Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Berkley, Michigan is now called to order. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to stand, face the flag, and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Schluto, could we have the roll call, please?
Board Member Allen? Board Member Allen?
Oh, here.
Board Member Gesund?
Here.
Board Member Krug? Board Member McAlpine?
Here.
Board Member Euler? Board Member Ward?
Here.
Chair Evans?
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. A quorum is 4. We do have 5 members, so we may proceed. Requesting a motion to excuse any absent board members.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gesund?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes. Next item is approval of the agenda. We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any proposed changes or modifications? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Mr. Chair, if there are no revisions or additions to the agenda as presented, I would make a motion that we approve it.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Ms. Schluto.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Gesund?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes. Okay, we have the draft minutes for our previous meeting, which was held on October 11th, 2020. We've all had an opportunity to review those. Do any board members have any suggested changes or corrections?
I'm seeing none. I would move that we approve the minutes of the Tuesday, August 11th meeting as presented.
Support.
Okay, any discussion? I do have just a couple of minor corrections I'd like to bring to everybody's attention. On page 2, for the first case, just above the roll call vote, the paragraph, second line says Chair Evan. There should just be an S after Evan. And on page 5, going from the top, the third paragraph down, I believe the statement should say that agreed that there is not a practical difficulty with the property that would justify the request. And those are the two changes I would recommend.
I would amend my motion to approve those.
Support.
Motion to amend and support. Any further discussion? Ms. Schluto.
Ward?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Gesund?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes. Okay, the next item for the agenda is old business, and this is application PBA 0520 for property on Coolidge Highway, commonly known as Vibe Credit Union. The agenda does indicate that request was withdrawn by the applicant. Ms. Schluto, is my presumption that we don't have to take any further action on this, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll just leave that as an informational item. That has been withdrawn by the applicant. Our new business, we have 5 items that we have to consider. And what I'll do for everybody here, and I'll do this again for the next set of applicants, is just give a brief outline of the order of operations that we'll proceed with. So a case for a variance, this is how we'll do things. We'll call the case. Staff will make a brief presentation summarizing the facts of the request. If there's any questions from board members for staff, those will be entertained. When those are completed, we'll verify that the applicant is here and ask the applicant or the representative to approach the podium. and explain to the board why they should get their variance. It's not required that you reiterate every single thing in your application, although you may. Please rest assured that we've all reviewed these applications in great detail and received every page of your application. At that time, when the applicant or the representative has completed speaking, I'll open it up for any questions that the board members may have for the applicant or the representative. And once that order of business is done, I'll ask the applicant or the representative to please be seated, and I'll open it up for public hearing. We may have people public hearing who choose to come in person, and we'll also ask that the vice chair read in or summarize any written comments received. After the public hearing is closed, the matter will return to the board for deliberation. Only upon request of the board or a board member will an applicant be asked to return to the podium to respond to questions or otherwise add additional information to their case. At that point, the board will deliberate and reach a decision. So with that, Ms. Schluto, our first case for a property on 12 Mile.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to reference my October 6, 2020 review letter. This is for case PBA-07-20, 3572 West 12 Mile. The applicant is requesting a variance to replace the sign of an existing non-conforming pole sign. As stated in the zoning ordinance, section 94-7D, pole signs are required to maintain a 5-foot setback from the front property line. The existing pole sign, as evidenced by the materials that are provided to you in your application packet, is about 30 inches from the front property line. So this is a legal non-conforming pole sign. The pole was installed several decades ago and has served as a pole sign for the existing businesses that have occupied that address for the last several decades. However, the zoning ordinance was updated in 2010, which states that any pole sign must be at least 5 feet from the front property line. It is very specific about non-conforming signs and their structures, and they shall not have any changes made in the words, symbols used, or the messages to display the sign. So that's why the applicant is here this evening. They are looking for a variance in order to replace the sign face of the existing pole sign. They are not going to increase the nonconformity. They are not going to do anything that would exacerbate or enlarge it. They are simply asking to replace the wording or the face of the sign. I have gone through the standards of review for the variance in the review packet, and it is up to the Zoning Board of Appeals to determine if the variance is to be granted. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions for Ms. Schluto? Okay, and I have none. Okay, at this point, is the applicant or the applicant's representative here? Sir, please step up to the podium. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Absolutely.
And you just let us know your name and where you are, and then tell us what you'd like to tell us.
My name is Zachary Glazier. I'm the owner of Alpha Auto that currently resides at 3572 12 Mile Road. And I'd like to first say thank you for hearing our case. So when I signed the lease, nobody thought there'd be an issue changing a sign face that had been there for decades. Last thing on my mind when trying to open up a new business during COVID. And then when we applied for the permit, we were told that it is non-conforming, and so that's where we are today. I would like potential customers to be able to see my business while coming down 12 Mile Road because we are set back a little bit. So to see our business, it is harder to recognize it until you're already past it. Allowing us to continue using that sign with just changing the business name on it would greatly help us to get new customers and retain our old customers. We moved from Royal Oak where we were there for 39 years. So having our old customers find us is just as important as new customers. As far as the variance goes, We understand that it's non-conforming. However, we hope that you guys will see to it to allow us to go ahead and change that, as we've given that building the facelift it needed. We've really tried to beautify Berkley down on that end. You guys have done great work on this end of 12 Mile. I really want to extend it down further towards Greenfield. We've painted, we've put on new doors, working on the parking lot, we've cleaned up the parking lot, and I'd like a sign that reflects the hard work we've been doing as well.
Great. Presuming you're all finished?
Yep.
Okay. Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant? I do have one.
Yes.
Have you looked into the feasibility of either moving this sign or constructing a different sign in a compliant location? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I started looking into it a bit. The current sign does have electrical going to it. So in order to move the electrical, you then incur the expense of busting up the parking lot, which concrete work is not inexpensive, and then moving a sign that's been there for so long that I don't think we'd be able to move it without it disintegrating. So I think it would end up having to be a whole new structure, in which is a large expense for a business that's reopening.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. You'll have a seat.
All right?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Ward, yes.
I have a question for the petitioner.
Oh, sir, yes, please stay, and Ms. Ward has a question.
Would your sign rotate, or would it be stationary?
It would be stationary just how it is now.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Ms. McAlpine.
First of all, your packet is amazingly comprehensive, so thank you. Second of all, I just want to confirm, all you're doing is putting different words and a different business name on the same exact thing that's in place. So there's no change to the height, to the width.
There's no change whatsoever. The only thing that I would like to do, obviously with the board's permission, is the sign looks like it hasn't been painted in 20 years. I'd like to sandblast it and repaint it to make it look just as nice as the building. But it will not change the height, the structure, the width, anything.
So if someone drove by today and they really didn't notice the sign, and they drove by tomorrow and you had done it, it would draw really no attention to it being changed?
Besides being able to find my business, no.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, at this point, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who have any comments regarding this? If so, raise your hand, step on up to the podium, and yes, sir, please, come up. And if you'd just let us know your name and your proximity to the business, if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Hi, my name is Michael. I live on Cummings, which is 3 blocks away. I'm also this gentleman's brother, but that's besides the point. I drive up and down the street, and I've seen what he's been doing for that business. When I first moved in, the building looked run down. I didn't realize there was a tenant in there, and there was a tenant in there. It was just a bunch of rundown cars, and just, the building didn't look great. As he's moved in, he's fixed up the building. I hear from my neighbors, it's like, oh, did you see this new business? And they're excited. My wife, in fact, is on Facebook, and there's a Berkley, Facebook group. All I see is posts of how well this business is doing and how the community has embraced his business. And so I wanted to come here, support it, and show that somebody in the community, we hear about this business and we want them to succeed. So we wanted to show our support for them.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to address the board regarding this matter? Final request, any members of the public? Okay, at this point, I'll turn it over to any written comments that we received. Vice Chair McAlpine, are you, I understand we received a some comments, including a petition and something in our packet. Would you be able to summarize that for everyone here?
Yes, hold on, please.
Sure.
So we do have a petition here, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people that have signed this petition that are in agreement with us granting the variance to change the sign. And then also Johanna Lowenskowski, Lozenkovski, sent a email to Ms. Schlutow on October 2nd, and it states, "I am in support of Alpha Automotive as I live on Oakshire, 5 houses down. They have done an amazing job of improving the corner of 12 Mile and Oakshire. I am also in a family small business, and I feel cities need to do more to support our small businesses, and a request like this should be granted. So again, I'm in favor of allowing the variance for the sign on 12 Mile for Alpha Automotive."
Thank you.
So nothing else from the surrounding area or neighbors.
Okay, and I'll just double check with Ms. Schluto. Have we received any additional comments since the agenda was printed up?
No, we have not.
Okay. All right, so at this point, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Mr. Allen?
Ms. Shuto, I have a question for her. The pole itself that the sign is mounted on, has that been inspected as for structural integrity and that kind of stuff?
No, it has not.
It has not.
Not by anybody in our department, no.
It didn't look bad when I went by there, but I'm not a structural engineer either, so.
I don't
just
know if the
wondered.
applicant has had anybody that he has discussed that with who has done said inspections, but nobody from our department has.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Any additional discussion or comments from any of the board members?
No, and if there are no additional comments or questions, I would make a motion that we approve application PBA 07-203572 12 Mile Road for Alpha Automotive to grant the variance to replace a sign face of an existing legal non-conforming sign pole as requested by their petition.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any discussion? And do any board members want to enumerate on perhaps how this request fits in with our standards?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and yes, and I hear Ms. McAlpine and then Mr. Allen.
Well, I would just state that we are obligated to verify or validate that the petitioner's request does satisfy our 5 criteria. And given the information in the packet and what has been shared with us today, I believe it does meet those 5 standards.
And I'm seeing concurrence from Ms. Ward, the supporter of the motion. Thank you. I do have one challenge, and perhaps my board members can help me. First of all, I want to say this is a wonderfully prepared application, and the applicant has done an excellent job with the property. I've noticed that it's like the nicest I've ever seen.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just really impressed that he went to all the trouble to get the signatures. I think that is very commendable.
This is better than we see from architectural firms.
Absolutely.
Can you hear all
Yes.
that? Okay, very good. I'm wondering, and perhaps some of the board members can help walk me through this. I sense that it's intentional that the crafters of the ordinance specifically wanted to regulate non-conforming signs by no changes made in the words or symbols. Clearly, doing that could be argued that that perhaps is a self-created hardship. And possibly it could be argued, at least I haven't heard any information here tonight that would suggest that the sign, or maybe not this sign, but a sign similar could be placed, or couldn't be placed on the property. I just haven't heard any information regarding that, so absent any comment from my board members, I'm not convinced that this does meet all our standards. I believe that, most importantly, that, if there's a need to put up a new sign, it's just not clear to me that there is a practical difficulty with something on the property that would preclude somebody from doing that. And I see two hands up, Mr. Allen first, and then
Okay.
Ms. McAlpine.
I look back as a reference to a few months ago when the American Legion Post asked for a very similar situation. And because the sign wasn't further impeding, I believe this board decided that it would be okay to change it out. And that was actually an electronic board that had a lot more going on to it. And I kind of used that as my bellwether.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also say, if we look at criteria C, which is strict compliance with the ordinance will unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or will render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome. I think when you ask the question about possibly relocating it, we would then be asking the petitioner to incur additional costs of moving it, changing up the layout of the property, and the physical structure of that piece of property, which I don't think is fair to him. And, sorry, my mask keeps slipping. And I understand that we have 5 criteria to meet, and we can't go out, it's pretty black and white, but given that, and then the additional expense that he has put into renovating the property and making it look good, I think that that's an unnecessary burden we would place on him, given he's simply replacing what he has, he's not asking for anything additional, and it's not fair for him to have to spend more money than he already is.
Great, thank you.
Maybe it's just
If I may.
Mr. Jasson, yes.
Not only that, but if you move the sign further in, because of the makeup of the building surrounding it, it makes it very hard to see the sign until you're right up on it, which is really a safety hazard as far as I'm concerned, because it could cause accidents because people are looking for it and they can't see it because the bowling alley's in the way. And it's really, that's the practical difficulty in the unique nature of the property, is that you can't see the sign from far enough out to stop in a reasonable time. Even as slow as the traffic is on 12 Mile and the speed limit, it's dangerous to have the signs be further in.
Okay,
And
thank you, yes.
to add on to that comment, if we think back to the variance that we granted for Tootie and Tallulah's, it was exactly that same reason, that we felt if people passed it or were driving and suddenly stopped, they would cause an accident. And we also considered if they passed it, they'd have to go back through the neighborhood, and we were putting more traffic into the neighborhood, which was not what we intended to do.
Okay. Ms. Ward?
I concur with my fellow board member, Ms. McAlpin. I think to ask the petitioner to move the sign in to coincide with the ordinance would create a practical difficulty. It would cost a lot of money to do the asphalting and to relocate the pole into basically what is the parking area of that building. So I feel that what we are going to do, or what I plan to vote, or how I plan to vote tonight, is allowing this person the least cost to get some type of recognition for his building and for his business.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate all the constructive comments by all my board members. Okay,
Are you ready to entertain a motion, Mr. Chairman?
We had a motion.
I think we do have a motion and
Oh.
a support, is that correct, Ms. Schluto?
We do, yes.
I think, I have no further comments. If there's no further discussion, I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Anything else anyone wants to add? Seeing none, Ms. Schluto?
Allen?
Yes.
Gazund?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes. Congratulations, sir, you do have your variance. Thank you for your time, and thank you for coming tonight.
We'll be in touch tomorrow. Bye, thank you.
Okay, our next case is an interpretation of commercial message for painted mural for property on 11 Mile. Ms. Schluto, could you provide the board an introduction and summary of this request?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to reference my October 6, 2020 review letter. This is for the interpretation of commercial messages for 3 painted murals at 4000 West 11 Mile Road. The applicant, Ideation Orange, is submitting this on behalf of Strategic Energy Solutions. They are looking to paint 3 murals, like I said, on the side of the building, one that will face the south, one that will face the east, wrap around to the north, and then a third one on the north side of the building. Per the zoning ordinance, we don't have standards of review for murals, except as a definition that a mural or work of art must come before the Zoning Board of Appeals to determine if a commercial message is present. If there is a commercial message present, as determined by the ZBA, then that proposed rendering or design would have to meet the standards for a wall sign. If the if the ZBA determines that a commercial message is not present, then it is considered a mural or a work of art, and they can move forward with their installation. As this property is not located in the DDA, they would not be able to apply to the DDA mural program. That is something that we have discussed here before. So I'd like to go through, since there are 3, we can kind of discuss them a little bit. The south facade facing 11 Mile Road, the applicant has provided a description of the rendering, and this would include to celebrate the character of the Great Lakes waterways. There would be symbols and images representing fish, lighthouse, compass, anchor, bridges, and more. The representations do not contain any direct or indirect advertising or branding. These images will not be part of their overall marketing strategy for their business. The east facade facing Thomas Avenue, this is the second design. It's proposed to wrap around to the north side of the building. This will be a pattern or texture-driven type mural, so there won't be any content to it. The applicant has thought about the traffic patterns and the wall orientation to determine that this side of the building is best suited for this type of design. Again, the proposed design does not include any images or other representations that would be considered part of their branding or marketing strategy. It is merely as an enhancement to the building itself and for the community members. Now, this east facade mural or design is meant to wrap around the building, but there is a third separate type of design that the applicant is hoping to do. They are text graphic images. One is a quote from Albert Einstein, "Everything in life is vibration," and the second one is his equation, E equals mc squared. Now, these text graphic designs or renderings would border the doorways that are already existing, and just meant to give it a little bit of enhancement on that side of the building. The property owner and the artist have agreed, and they've all submitted signed mural installation and maintenance agreements. This was something that we had put into place after the previous mural that we discussed here through the ZBA, and this provides direction on the installation, how they will be maintained, and insurance that they will not be using these images or any of the representation as part of their branding or marketing strategies. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Very detailed. Appreciate that. Do any members of the board have any questions for staff?
If I may.
Mr. Dezun?
Is the painted logo on the north facade, is that considered a sign, is that part of the mural, or is that?
That's not part of the mural. That is part
Okay.
of their sign variance application that we'll be considering separately.
Okay, but the everything in life is vibration is part of the mural?
Yes.
Okay,
So the north side has the wraparound of that textured pattern, the 2 text graphics above the doorway, and you do see in the image provided to you in your packet that they do have their logo on that wall, but that's not part of the mural discussion. That's part of the sign variance request that they have submitted, and we'll discuss at the next in the next case.
Okay.
Mr. Allen?
As I drive around the city and look at the murals, not one of them that I can recall has any lettering on it at all. There are pieces of art that don't have any numbers or letters on them. And in my mind, for the sake of consistency, I'd like to see that continue all over the city. I love the murals. The murals are the coolest thing. And a lot of people have commented to me that aren't from here about how much they like the murals. But I wanted to see if there were other murals out there that had written word on them. And there aren't that I can find.
Okay, thank you. Any additional requests from staff? Seeing none, okay. Is the applicant here? Okay, hi.
From Ideation Orange.
All right, and just before, I don't know if you were here, you could hear outside, but just to give you an idea how the order of operations will do, we'll ask you to speak. You can tell us everything you'd like to tell us about this. Know that we've all reviewed your comprehensive application in detail. We've received every page. You don't have to repeat everything that's in there, but you can if you want. That's okay. When you're done presenting, I'll turn it over to the board members to see if they have any questions for you. And once we're done with that, we'll ask you to have a seat. I'll open up for public comment. At that time, anyone else can comment on the request. And we'll also enter into the record at that time any written comments that the city might have received. When that portion is completed, I'll close the public comment period and bring it back to the board for discussion. You would not be asked to return or otherwise participate in the meeting unless a member of the board had a question for you. So with that being said, tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Yeah.
And welcome.
So Aaron gave a great summary, so I know you've all seen the content, so I won't belabor that. I will say, yeah, some of the text on the back on that north facade that's facing the parking lot, it's meant to be a bit of an Easter egg that ties in with what's on the east facade and kind of goes around and ties back in with the sort of vibrant nature of that. And it's meant to sort of pull it back from being maybe purely metaphysical to, you know, give an idea of a process, how people can be inspired by natural phenomenon, which that is sort of represented by the texture of that mural, and how that can inspire somebody as renowned as Albert Einstein to ultimately, you know, come to an equation, right? So it was something small. We certainly didn't want any major text to overwhelm anything. So that was the thinking behind that, so I'll just leave it there. Other than that, though, the content on the primary, what I would consider really the main, like, public-facing mural facing 11 Mile is really meant to celebrate the sort of Great Lakes waterways, and just because that informs so much of what Michigan is about in general. And it's something that we looked at the other murals, everything that we could find in Berkeley, and didn't see anything with that, like, sort of tact, or, you know, with that sort of content on it. So that was something we were looking for too when making these proposals. In general, the east facade, as it kind of has in the written statement, which is the one that's that graphic texture, is primarily to really dress up a corner or the end of that street that would otherwise be painted block walls and like parking lot entrances. So something that's aspirational, but also doesn't fight, and is very content light intentionally, so that it doesn't feel like it's trying to fight with the South's mural. And then maybe just the last point is you don't really ever have a view where you can see both that east mural and the south mural like at the same time. So in terms of just visual clutter or something like that, I think that's an important thing to sort of consider as well.
Great,
So we thought
okay.
about that.
Well, thank you very much. Do any members of the board, Ms. Ward? Yes. you-
What is, or where is the main ingress and egress door for the building?
The public egress for, say, a client coming to that building for SES, they will often park sometimes in the back. They might park in the 11-mile parking lot, so they really have 2 parking lots at this location. Generally, though, people are entering in the front, so they're entering from the 11-mile side, not directly off of the parking lot where the mural is. They're actually walking to the brick front of the building.
So they'll come out from the parking area, walk along the sidewalk, and go in
Correct.
the front, the brick area?
Yep, that's the main client entrance, if you will. Now, employees use a variety of doors, so there's a door that's even in the south mural wall that employees are going to use, but we're not even calling that out. It's actually going to be muraled over. It's not even, being accented with color or anything. And then on the back, primarily it's employees really that generally park back there. Most people see the front one, go in there and then go in the front entrance. If a client does park in the back, they're encouraged to use the front. They do sometimes go in that larger glass door that is on the north side. But the idea is primarily people would enter off 11 then.
Thank you.
Mr. Dizon.
Hi, is the everything in life is vibration, the Albert Einstein quote, and the theory of relativity, the E equals MC squared, is that used in your advertising at all, or is that a motto for the company or anything?
No, that was something I came up with. So I'm the creative representing us, Strategic Energy Solutions.
Okay.
That was something we brought to the table. It's never been used in
Okay.
any sort of advertising.
And there's no plan to add that to your advertising or anything?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that was purely developed just in the context of the mural scope for
Okay.
exteriors.
Ms. McAlpine.
So, I am also a member of the, Aaron, what am I a member of? I can't even think, it's totally escaping me.
Downtown Development Authority?
No, the master
Mural?
plan.
Oh, the master plan
Master
steering
plan.
committee.
Yes, I'm on the steering committee for that, and it was about a month and a half ago, we actually walked 11 Mile and walked part of Greenfield, and one of the things we did talk about was how inviting or uninviting some of these buildings are, and we talked about things that could be done. We talked specifically about doing murals. We talked about ways to incentivize property owners to do them, contests, things of that nature. So it's my understanding that the petitioners is paying for this. There's just a way to beautify the building.
Right, correct. Yeah.
So I will say, add in that does align with some of the things that we talked about as a way to enhance 11 Mile and to make it look more alike with some of the other areas. So I think they're great. If you would have been part of our conversation, you would have thought that was what you should be doing. You didn't even know, so.
Perfect.
Thank you. Do any other board members have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You could have a seat. At this point, I'll open up the public hearing for this matter. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak regarding this? Anybody here who would like to speak, just raise your hand, step up to the podium. Final call, seeing no hands or other gestures. I'll bring it back to the board for any correspondence that we have received. I don't recall
I
seeing.
don't see any.
No, Ms. McAlpine, nothing in the packet? And Ms. Schluto, have we received any additional written comments from the public since?
We have not.
No? Okay. All right. With that being said, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the board. It sounds like our operative question is, does the proposed mural contain a commercial message? Mr. Allen?
To me, the artistic murals are great, but there's always room for improvement. And the artistic murals are going to be fantastic, but in this case, and I hope in future cases, there's no logos, branding, or graphics that are used in the business that appear on the outside of this. And there's no written word that could be construed as a logo or a brand of the business. You know, that's, I brought up the wording because it was a bit inconsistent with other things, other murals in town. I don't find that to be a real problem.
Okay.
But in this case, definitely, there is no commercial message on any part of this.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
If there's no other discussion, I would make a motion to approve the request.
I'll
Okay.
support that.
We have a motion and support. Ms. Ward, you had your hand up? Yes.
I do have a question. The SES, Strategic Energy Solution logo that's on the back of the building,
Yes.
since the front part that faces onto 11 Mile is considered the main access into and out of the building, do they really need on the back of the building SES?
Well, and if I could
Logo.
comment, I believe the SES is not part of this particular interpretation.
Okay.
But it is part of our next request for
Next,
variance.
okay,
Okay, good. All right.
thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, if I
yes.
may? If we could modify that motion just to state that we're not approving, you are interpreting whether or not they
Yes.
contain a commercial message. just so we
I'll
have
restate that. So I'd like to make a motion that after review of the petitioner's request, that we have determined that it does not, the three murals do not contain any commercial messages.
And they're considered murals, right, okay,
And
good.
I'll modify my support.
It's, okay, second and support, modified, okay, great, is everybody clear? Good. And I would concur, there's no commercial messages, and I'm gonna vote that, interpret that these are definitely murals. Okay, sounds like we're ready for a vote, Ms. Schluto?
Gazund,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes,
Allen,
Yes?
Evans.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to our next item of business, which is for property at 4,000 West 11 Mile, and it's a variance request regarding a sign. Ms. Schluto, could you provide a summary for the board?
Yes, thank you. Again, I'd like to reference my October 6th review letter. This is for PBA-08-20, 4,000 West 11 Mile. The applicant is requesting a variance for the wall sign on the north side of the building that does not face a public street. This is the SES logo, so this will face the north parking lot area. It is included on all the documentation for, that was contained within the mural discussion. Part of our zoning ordinance states that one sign is permitted for each street frontage. The existing building already has frontage on 11 Mile and Thomas. They do not have any signage on Thomas, they do on 11 Mile. So they're proposing to put a painted wall sign on the north side facing the parking area, not a main street. I have included here the 6 standards of review. They're contained in your packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions for staff? Ms. Schluto, I do have one. Is it correct that you've indicated there were no signs on the exterior of the building?
Only on the front, facing 11 Mile.
11 Mile, got it, okay,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Allen?
Is there anything, Ms. Schluto, that would prevent them from utilizing what would normally go on the side of the building to the back?
Facing Thomas,
What's that?
facing Thomas,
Okay.
Yes.
right on the other side of the street. Well, if you look at the configuration of the building, so you have the brick area with windows and then all cinder block. So the way it was proposed, the brick area with the windows, and the owner would be able to give a little bit more. There's not a lot of area there to put a sign, and the expansive cinder block area was just, is designed for a mural. So outside of that, unless they were to obscure the mural that they've designed, there isn't another place for them to put a wall sign. And there's not enough space in that separate area off of the sidewalk for them to put a pylon or a ground sign or even a pole sign.
So you don't foresee any problems of, exchanging one for the other?
Well, not unless they redesign their building and take the murals down at some point, but
Right,
no,
but as we sit today,
correct.
okay.
Okay, seeing no additional questions for staff, the applicant could please come up and tell us all the reasons why about your variance request.
Yeah, so as explained, we put this design together assuming that the mural on Thomas would be approved, and we did not want to distract from that mural. Now, if the mural was not there, certainly, you know, you could put signage on that side and it wouldn't maybe be overly cluttered. But this was a way to still provide some presence. It's primarily just going to be viewed by people in the alleyway and the parking lots. So we're not really like trying to, I don't know, do anything weird with it. And in fact, we're doing a sort of subtle tone-on-tone aspect to it. And we're doing painting partially to also kind of downplay the fact that it is relatively large because it is a large wall. So you kind of have to respect the scale of the facade that you're working with. But it is within what they would normally be allowed per code in terms of scale on Thomas. So overall, you know, we are trying to be kind of subtle with it, but yes, you know, kind of treat this signage allowance, if they're allowed to put it on this facade, in a way that's respectful to the murals, as respectful as possible to the sort of usage conditions throughout. So even being kind of set back from the road, we felt was even a little more subtle too. So, you know, kind of working within the facade constraints to an extent too. You know, didn't have it close to that corner by Thomas intentionally because it'd be a little more crammed in there. But yeah, you know, it's just, we wanted to find a solution for the client where, okay, if we did have signage applied either on Thomas or, you know, ideally on this north facade, what is the best scenario of that? So that's what is in the proposal there.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant?
So the door where the logo is going to be is not the main egress for the building, so customers aren't going in.
Yeah, that door especially is really like an employee-only entrance.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
I could ask my question now, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes. Should we ask the applicant to return? I'm sorry. I think I misread your cues.
What do you, why do you need signage on the north side of the building, the north face of the building?
It's more because there's no signage. There's not anything explicit that really calls out, one, that parking lot. So that whole large parking lot in the back is SES's lot. And again, if there was something on the east side of the building, especially on the east side of the building, especially towards, say, one of the parking lot entrances, that would fulfill it as well. Some sort of guidance. So that's part of it. It's also just a large, expansive block wall, so we felt that it was something to make that feel less intimidating as well, so it breaks up just kind of the color and some interest to an extent too. So there is some aesthetic, I could say, consideration of why we felt like, okay, this makes sense here. Obviously, that's more subjective, but I'd say the functional component is to, yes, reinforce to an extent of this large parking lot that, yes, this is an SES lot. And this is an SES, you know, that's the SES building as seen from the back, which is not super obvious because you got this brick facade on most of the front, and then you get to the back and it's all blocked too.
Were any of the neighbors that are on the north side of the building contacted, or did you share the details of the plan with them?
Steve might want to talk to that a little more. I know there was some discussion a little bit about some painting touch-up with the direct neighbor right next door, right? Yeah. So
I'm sorry, the person at the podium should be speaking, but sir, if you're involved with the application, you do have the answer to the question, please step up. And if you could just let us know your involvement with the application.
My name's Steve DeBaradine. I'm the owner of Strategic Energy Solutions as well as the building, and I'm also a Berkley resident as well.
Gotcha, okay, and you were starting to answer the
The
question?
question was asked about neighbor support. We share a common wall with PM Environmental, another engineering firm. Mike Kulka is the owner there. When he learned about everything we were doing, he was very excited. Again, he thought maybe he should be here, and I suggested that it wasn't necessary, but our neighbor has 100% support.
Okay. Satisfactory, Ms. Ward?
Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. McAlpine, I see your hand is up.
So technically, they could have or if I'm reading this correctly, and I apologize, I feel like I've been all over today. They could have a sign on 11 Mile and they could have a sign on Thomas.
Right,
So what they're doing is we have the option of putting a very nice mural on 11 Mile, on Thomas, instead of a sign, and just putting the sign in a place that really truly does not do anything to promote their business, except anyone who parks in that parking lot knows they're coming to that business's parking lot. So it just brands the parking lot versus branding the business as I see it.
If I could speak again, I see the murals is almost a gift to the neighborhood, the city, passers-by. This logo is kind of a gift to the employees, that when they show up in the morning and they have some pride of where
Or
they're
someone,
showing up.
or at least, to take it a step further, it's recognition to a customer that I'm coming into this building and it looks nice, and it just kind of is like an awning, if you will, or something like that.
So most people that visit, when they leave, I ask, did they park in the front or the back? If it's the back, I walk them through and out the back. So, yeah, they do see it.
Ms. Ward?
Mr. Chairman, did I read in the materials that were provided that there were going to be quotations that were going to be added to the back wall, the north wall?
Yeah, that was,
The
in the
E squared,
first,
Albert Einstein.
yeah, in the first mural consideration. Those were the Einstein quotes that
Right.
Aaron was talking about. And there's a whole page, there should be a whole page. It's
Yep.
probably one of the last pages that actually shows that in more detail. It's hard to see because
That's
they're,
this.
they're
Yeah,
so,
that's what we consider part of the
okay.
mural. Thanks, Ms.
because
McAlpine.
they're really small. When you look at the whole view, you really can't even tell they're there.
So really, those three were one thing that we already have.
Yeah, we've already rendered a
We've already
determination.
rendered, they are not messaging. This is strictly a variance from taking a sign on a part of a building that it would be permitted legally, and moving it to an area that most people would not consider putting it there. And in return, we're getting a beautiful mural that falls in line with a lot of the things I think the master plan is trying to do to improve that corridor.
Ms. Ward, were we able to answer your question?
Yes,
Good,
thank
good,
you.
good. Thank you for all the clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, at this point, I'll open up the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment to the board? Anyone here, just raise your hand, step up to the podium. Seeing none, I'll ask once more. There's no one else here, just one other person, and that person hasn't raised their hand, so, okay. Ms. McAlpine, have we received any correspondence in our packet?
No, we have not, Mr. Chairman.
No written correspondence. Ms. Schluto, any correspondence?
No, we have
None?
not.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion.
If I may.
Mr. Jazan.
Putting the logo in front of the door that's not a public egress seems like it would be confusing to people that if I was parking in here, I'd want to go, I'd be banging on that door to get in there. Now, that's not part of our criteria to discuss, but that's just an observation that I made. Under our standards for review, the strict compliance with the ordinance will unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or will render conformity with these regulations unnecessarily burdensome. I can't see justification for that it would make it hard to do business in that location.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I concur. I'm not convinced that by not allowing this sign in this proposed location, that it will unreasonably restrict use of the property. Certainly, I think the applicant has done a wonderful job and spent what looks to me as a lot of time designing this, and I think it looks very nice. I think the sign looks very nice. I'm just not convinced that, in this instance, that, I mean, the ordinance was written specifically to allow signs on street frontages, and I just don't see any practical difficulty that was brought before the board that would suggest that, other than the fact that they've had a clean palette and decided this was the mural design they wanted to do, it's not clear to me that they couldn't have incorporated signs perhaps into that or come up with a different mural. So I think there's alternatives. So I'm not convinced that they do meet the standards. Are there any more comments from any other board members?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Ward.
What is your suggestion about an alternative?
Well, that's not up for the board to determine, but I haven't
Right.
seen information that would suggest that alternatives wouldn't work. I haven't heard from the applicant that alternatives wouldn't work,
Okay.
and we know that the ordinance specifically permits one sign on each frontage, but that would be up to the applicant to make their case before us why something would be unreasonable in light of the standards.
Well, okay, I'm gonna go for, I'm just talking this through in my head. So if the petitioner had the mural up and came here and asked us after, then we would be denying them the right to advertise their business. They would have one less location to advertise their business. Because if the Thomas frontage had the mural, then they couldn't put their logo on there because that would go against what they're allowed to do. So if we look at them as two separate things, that they have a mural there, therefore they have lost an opportunity. By not approving it, we would deny them a logo placement or a sign, in a sense. I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's making any sense.
That makes sense.
So in essence, we're creating a hardship by not approving it?
Yeah. Here's our struggle, is that we have these criteria that we have to meet, and it's not gray, it's black and white. So we have to come up with some kind of justification that allows us to say yes, even though we may love it. And that's where I guess I'm going is, if the murals are the murals, and he's allowed two signs, this is the least obtrusive place to put it, I would argue as well. And so therefore, it could be said that we could approve it, given that thought process.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the board members? Would somebody care to make a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the request to grant a dimensional variance to paint a wall sign on the facade that does not face a public or private street, as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you. Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Seconded by Ms., okay.
We should again go back to the standards and mention those in the motion.
So I would amend my motion to say that, that per section 138606 of the zoning ordinance, the applicant has demonstrated a practical difficulty in order to be granted a dimensional variance, and that we will approve the petition as requested.
Thank you, and I'll modify my support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, Ms. Schluto, I think we're ready for a vote.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Ward?
Pass. For the moment.
Allen?
Yes.
Gesund?
No.
Ward,
Yes.
Evans,
No. So there's a, sir, you need 4 votes to receive your variance. You've only received 3 affirmative votes. Ms. Schluto, do we have to make a second motion to deny the variance, or is it just that the variance isn't granted?
that the variance isn't granted.
Okay, gotcha, okay. So, sir, your variance has not been granted, but we thank you for your time, and I think everyone on this board does appreciate all the work that you're proposing to do to the building, and thank you for being in Berkeley. Thank you. Okay, our next item is the resolution to ratify the decisions made by the zoning board since April 30th, 2020. And Ms. Schluto, if you could give us a brief summary?
Yes, I'd like to reference my October 8th, 2020 review letter, or not a review letter, just a memo. So the decision by the Michigan Supreme Court that came down on October 2nd, 2020, determined that all of the executive orders issued by Governor Whitmer after April 30th, 2020 to be invalid and unenforceable. As part of that, we have gone back to, we're going to City Council, Planning Commission, and ZBA in order to ratify all the decisions that have been made since that time, as they were all done via virtual meetings. So I provided a summary of the cases and decisions that were made by the ZBA since April 30th. You've had 3 meetings since then. The case numbers are included, as well as the property address, the summary of the request, and the decision that was made by the board at this time. We do have a draft resolution that's been included in your packet, and it just states, therefore, the resolve of the Berkeley Zoning Board of Appeals, that they hereby ratify and reaffirm all decisions made by the Zoning Board of Appeals at all the remote participation meetings held between April 30th and the present, and a complete listing shall be attached herein as an exhibit. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from any of the board members? And I'm presuming simply a motion to,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'll
Yes.
move to accept the resolution
thank you.
that
Support.
ratifies and affirms all decisions made by the ZBA at remote participation meetings held between April 30th and today.
We have a motion, and Ms. McAlpine, you supported?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion?
Just one small point. The last meeting that we had for PBA 05-20 regarding the Vibe Credit Union, because that motion was withdrawn, that application was withdrawn at this meeting, do we still need to, can we strike that from what we're approving, or just lump it all in together, or it doesn't matter?
I thought that too, but the actual action that we did take at that day was that we did postpone it. And then
Right,
you decided
okay.
after the meeting that they were gonna withdraw it, so I
Okay.
believe that's an accurate reflection
I
of
would
our.
say, I believe we have to accurately reflect everything that was done at every one of our meetings. The fact that something changed and we met in person
Okay.
balances those 2 out,
Okay.
in my mind.
Thank you. Any? All right, hearing no further discussion, I think we're ready for a vote.
Ward,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes?
Gesund,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Move on now to other business. Ms. Schluto, is there any other business?
No, I don't have any this evening.
All right. I just want to say thank you for the job that staff has done in getting this meeting where we are today in just a short period of time. Liaison report? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, yes.
Just one thing to report, and that's that I took quite a few of the breakout sessions for the Michigan Association of Planners virtual training. It was really good. The one that stood out in my mind was the brownfield development presentation that was in there, and the work that they're trying to do up north to rehab the old Sugarloaf Ski Resort, which has been sitting vacant with broken windows in it for years and years. And it was just very interesting, the whole approach. So I would urge my fellow zoning board members to access the Michigan Association of Planning website and watch a couple of those webinars. They're really, really good. And I'd also like to take a moment to wish our fellow board member Joe Krug all the best in the recovery of his wife. Good people.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Jasun?
Just a little bit outside of the zoning board purview, but we do have an election on November 3rd, and the city clerk has done a great job of expanding their hours and staying open even in this crisis to help people vote. And please get out and vote, whether you vote through absentee, through drop box, or mail it in, which please, if you mail it in, please mail it in soon. And, or come out on election day, but please vote.
Thank you. Okay. All right, liaison report. Has Councilman Hennon submitted a liaison report?
No, he did not.
Okay, he's not here, so we'll hear from him next time.
We had our last council meeting that was supposed to be held this past Monday.
Yeah.
Had to be canceled due to the sudden change in how our meetings were to be operating.
Gotcha, okay.
So are we the guinea pig?
Yes.
It worked
We're the
well.
canary.
Well, everybody's in good shape, so I think we've done an excellent job. All right. At this point, I'll open up the floor to public comments. Is there anyone here who'd like to make any public comment? Anyone here? Final call for public comments. Seeing and hearing no one who would like to speak, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.